G'day Bomber fans, we are back for a 2026 player preview. We've got 45 different players on this Essendon list this year, which means there are 45 different stories and narratives to talk about. We're going to go through each individual today, talk about what it is that they need to do to achieve individual success for the 2026 season, because remember, every player is different. From Zach Merrett to Cillian Bourke, you've got different levels of expectations, different measures of success, so longer video to get through today. A few things before we start. If you guys do prefer listening to these longer format videos rather than watching them, I am on Spotify and I've left that link down below. I'm also on Instagram, by the way. That is everything_Essendon.ig. I'll leave that link below as well. Give that account a follow. But guys, let's stop yapping and start yapping. Let's get on to the players. Going in order of jumper number, starting with our new captain, Andy McGrath. This guy has been a stalwart since joining the club back in 2016. He hasn't really missed a game from anything other than injury in his whole career, so he's been locked in the best 23 since his first season, which is pretty crazy. And even then, by the way, I say he hasn't missed a game through anything other than injury, but he barely misses through injury either. He actually hasn't missed a game since 2022, so he's reliable defensively, locking down on opponents. He's reliable with his availability. He rarely gets injured, and he's just a reliable clubman as well. But I think in 2026 for Andy McGrath, expectations are going to rise a bit, and you know, it's not really about his game and how he plays. This is his first year as captain, so it's a new leadership style at the club. It's a new direction at the club. Obviously, his form is going to play a huge part in how us fans perceive him. But what is more important in 2026 is how he leads the team. And to be honest, his leadership style is definitely more behind the scenes. Like, everyone at the club talks about how he's helped shape their careers. We don't really see that on the footy field, so it's hard for us to judge what he's doing there. What we do see is how he holds himself on the footy field. And I've been an avid McGrath defender over the years, but now that he's captain, every turnover, every unforced error, every brain fade is going to garner more and more criticism now that he is the face of the club. So I love this guy on our list. He is as loyal and dedicated to the cause as anyone in the red and black, but there is undoubtedly now a lot of pressure on those shoulders for him to deliver even more than he has been in the past. So it's a big, big year for Andy. If anyone needs a consistent season to set the tone for the club, it is the captain. Jacob Farrow, debut season. Really, for that reason, you know, expectations have to be as low as they possibly can be. Like, I get that he's a higher draft pick, but for these first-year players, it's really just about finding your feet in the system and getting taught lessons and learnings. And, you know, this is the least developed that he's going to be as a footballer in his career, you would expect. So minimal expectations for Farrow to play footy. You know, I wouldn't even bemoan the club that much for leaving him in the VFL for extended periods, and that may well happen. But to be honest, I think we're going to see this guy play a fair bit in the AFL. Like, he just looks so silky and smooth and lovely on that left foot. He's going to play behind the ball or on the wing, and eventually later in his career, you'd expect him to move into the midfield more. I think it'll be really interesting watching him play AFL and VFL, because we might see those VFL midfield minutes a bit earlier than we would for AFL, and that'll give us some little glimpses into the future. And to be honest, that's what 2026 is for Jacob Farrow and the other draftees. It is all about glimpses into the future. I'm not expecting consistency. I'm not expecting, you know, them to be available each week and playing each week. It is really just about, you know, seeing what he's going to look like in the future, and hopefully for Farrow off field, you know, soaking in those lessons and learning on the run. Darcy Parish, he's having a massive preseason, which is really good because he needed one. He's struggled so much with injury since that breakout 2021 All-Australian season. Last year, he only played 3 games. That is almost a disaster for a senior player. So the fact that he's fit and firing, not only physically but mentally as well, he's looking happy and energized, is really good to see. I think for Parish now, obviously he has to stay on the park. That'll be his goal. Like, you don't want to see him play round 1, but you also want to see him play round 24 as well. You want to see him play as close to a full season as possible. And then I think it's about almost winning the fans over a little bit in a way. Like, this guy, you know, he doesn't fall out of contract till 2029. His career isn't at stake or anything like that. He's safe on our list on good money with a spot in the team when fit. But for Parish, it's about winning the fans over, because it's a very volatile sport. Like, we've got short memories. We look at these guys and doubt whether, you know, Parish can return to his All-Australian best because we haven't seen it for a while. He's got some things to do to get there. He'll need to sharpen up defensively, have more of an impact with the footy that he wins. And again, to repeat myself, stay out on the park. That is the most crucial part of the season, not getting injured again. But we're all just hoping and praying that he doesn't fall back and suffer any more setbacks, because, you know, he hasn't had an injury-free season in half a decade. So for Parish, it is hopefully a wind the clock back season? And then if it is, how far back can that clock be wound? Can it go back to 2021 when he was, in his early 20s playing incredible footy at his fittest? Or is it going to be, a significant drop-off from that 2021 form? I think we saw two different sides of him in the practice games, which makes it a bit hard to understand what Darcy Parish we're going to see in 2026. But what we do need to see is him buying in defensively more than anything. I think that's been the thing that's frustrated Essendon fans most about Darcy Parish and his footy. He's such a good extractor, such a good ball winner. It's that defensive side of his game that he needs to be accountable for, because footy, hard running is getting more and more important, and you haven't always associated hard running with Darcy Parish. So massive season for Parish. Hopefully he can stay fit. Kyle Langford is another hoping to put his injury troubles behind him. That's going to be a common theme of the video, to be honest. Look, he also struggled to stay out on the park last year, but at least in the case of Langford, the foundation that he built is more recent than Darcy Parish's. So this guy in 2023 and 2024 kicked 94 goals across 46 games. He was one of the most consistent goal scorers, not just for Essendon, but in the competition. He was kicking goals for fun across those 2 years. He obviously had last year, which was a bit of a gap year with those injuries, but now he comes into it with a full preseason, energized fitness. He's, even last year played some different roles that can energize him a bit. He played on the wing to end the year. So I think for Kyle Langford, it's not even really about returning to that goal scoring form, because when he was scoring those goals, we didn't have Nate Caddy on the field. We didn't have Peter Wright playing consistently, I don't think. I think we've got more goal scorers around Langford now, when he's fully fit. In fact, this forward line, it feels like it's the most available it's been in quite a few years. So I think for Langford, it's about finding the balance with those forwards around him and providing leadership for them too, because this is a young forward line. You've got Nate Caddy, you've got Isaac Kako, Hussien El Achkar. These guys, they're going to need direction from their senior players, and of all the forwards on our list, the only one in an official leadership capacity is Kyle Langford. He's definitely more of a lead by example type Langford, but I'd like to see him improve his vocality on the field and provide that direction for those younger players, if you get me. In terms of his footy, it's just about playing consistent footy, which he so often does. Like, I think when this guy has been fit in the last 3 years, fit and firing, he has been a consistent role player at the very least, and we saw that when he played the wing in the back half of 2025. So whether he's leading out of the goal square, whether he's playing in the wing or in another position, this guy just needs to provide consistent, output with his footy, but also his leadership as well. Elijah Tsatas, there are a few players on Essendon's list right now under more pressure than Elijah Tsatas. He has struggled to break into this AFL team since being drafted with pick 5 in the 2022 draft, a really high pick. So you've got the pressure from the fan base. You've also got now the pressure from a contractual viewpoint, because for the first time in his career, he is out of contract. And this is going to be a common theme in the video, but when you're out of contract, you are under more pressure. And in the case of Tsatas, there is a mountain of pressure on him to perform. He was obviously taken high in the draft, hasn't been able to get it going, despite dominating in the AFL. To be fair to him, he hasn't had a proper run at it, but with more midfielders being added in the summer to the team, it's going to get even harder for him to make a stamp on this side. And that's his role's been changed slightly to give him more stability and responsibility defensively. But for Tsatas, he just needs to break into this team and show something, or his career, at least at Essendon, could come to an end. And that is not an unreasonable thing to say. I'm not being too harsh there. He'd be thinking the same thing. There is a reason why he's entering the year without a contract offer, despite being a top 5 pick in his draft year. So there is monumental pressure on Elijah Tsatas to perform this year. It's not just about the fans, it's not just about the team, it's about his spot on the list. And that is, unfortunately, that is what happens when you fall out of contract. There's a reason why he hasn't been signed up yet. That the club will be thinking and watching him very closely, and deciding what his role for the Bombers is going to be going forward. And hopefully this guy can get it right, because he's been so dedicated to his footy and improving it. It just hasn't gotten to a stage yet where it's ready for AFL level, at least ahead of other guys on the list. It's a very deep midfield. He needs to do something to crack in there. A big part of that midfield that Tsatas is trying to break into is Jye Caldwell, who's been added to the leadership group as well for the first time in his career. And I think something to note here with Caldwell, yes, he's a reliable, tough midfielder. He's almost one of the most trustworthy players on our list with his actions. You just know that if this guy isn't performing to the best of his ability, he is trying to perform to the best of his ability. He is so trustworthy with his Don actions. That is what the players call them, the Don actions. But now that he's an official leader of the club, that trustworthy nature of his game is even more heightened. And if he doesn't meet those lofty standards that he's set over the years, more criticism will be directed his way because he is now in an official leadership capacity. And that is just how it works in the AFL. But to be honest, I'm not worried. Like, we know what we get from this guy. He's not one of the best midfielders in the competition. I don't think he'll be one of the best midfielders in the competition, but that's not an issue when you have such a hard-nosed, tough, nutty role player like Jye Caldwell on the team. He just cracks in and goes to work, and that's what we can expect from Jye Caldwell this year, especially now that he's in a leadership capacity. He's almost inspirational with his footy sometimes, like just the way that he goes in with disregard to his body. Maybe you'd like a bit more regard to his body because he's had a few injuries over the year as well. But again, like with Jye Caldwell, it's about staying on the park like it is with all the other players on this list, because if he's out on the park playing footy, we are a better team for it. Zach Merrett. So yeah, there's a big elephant in the room here with Zach Merrett. He obviously tried to escape the club, escape Alcatraz and head to Hawthorn. It didn't work. We blocked the trade. And I think for that reason, there's not only ramifications for Merrett this year if he doesn't underperform, but also for the club. That's the big thing about this one here with Zach Merrett, is that it's not just about him and what happens with him and how he can find individual success. But if Zach Merrett underperforms this year, there are going to be so many fans asking the question, why didn't we accept the trade? And honestly, it might be a fair question. That's the thing. We don't know yet whether it was the right move accepting the trade. Unfortunately, the only person that can dictate that is Zach Merrett. He's the only one in this situation that can really prove anyone right or wrong. I personally think at the time the right thing to do was to block the trade, but if Zach Merrett goes out there, underperforms, looks like he's disinterested, that's the main one, looking disinterested, like how he conducts himself and holds himself on the footy field, then that'll spark some concerns, because this guy, you know, he's been so professional, he's been so determined his whole career. He was almost like the Jye Caldwell before, where you can't really find bad things to say about him until that trade saga. So massive year for Zach Merrett. He's got a lot of trust to win over in that fan base. There's a lot of fans that are clearly, you know, not trusting him, and a lot of high profile fans not trusting him either. It feels like there is, you know, there's not as much love for Zach Merrett in the fan base right now. I would love nothing more than to see that love return, but the only person that can really do anything about that is Zach Merrett, and the only way he can do anything about that is by, you know, performing on the footy field. I think he's already done and said everything that he could said since the failed trade. It just isn't hitting right until he's out there playing footy. So massive year for Zach Merrett. All eyes are going to be on him. Cameras are going to be on him all the time. There is going to be so much Zach Merrett narrative and discussion in 2026. Brayden Fiorini, our new recruit for the year. This guy has already made a big stamp since coming across to the club. He has been added to the leadership group in his first off season. So that's a few months since joining at the hangar. The players have said, yep, that guy is already a leader at the club. So, I mean, already that's a tick. Like you want him to perform. You want him to go out there and play good footy, but already I'm saying this trade is a win. We've got someone who's out there setting the standards for young players. He's performing well at training. If he can go out there and perform well on the track as well, I mean, he's on line to be one of the recruits of the year. And I think that that's not unreasonable at all to say that. This guy has, got him for a bag of chips, a future third rounder. We got him for cheap, and he's already having a huge impact on the younger players, which is awesome. In terms of his footy, he's going to play on the wing. He's going to be stationed out there pretty much full time, using the footy in a very solid way, running back and forth both ways. I said in a recent video that he's my surprise Crichton contender for the year, because I really see this guy fitting into Essendon's culture and performing those Don actions. If you guys would remember my interview with Archie Roberts, he talked about Don actions and how, they don't really perceive stats or anything. It's the Don actions that mean more. And Brayden Fiorini, he's a player to me that I can see performing a lot of Don actions on the field in 2026. So I love this guy on the list. I think it's a great pickup for the club. Sullivan Robey, same idea with Jacob Farrow. You can't have too many expectations on a first-year player. I think it's even more so the case with Sullivan Robey, who, I mean, this time last year, he was playing club footy, wasn't even known to recruiters. Like, he wasn't even in the draft landscape. Fast forward 12 months and he's picked 9 in the draft much. So it's been a crazy meteoric rise, and eventually you just need it to kind of steady out a bit. And the best way to do that is integrating him slowly through the VFL. On top of that, you've also got his back injury that has kept him out of pretty much the entire preseason. So this guy is going to take a bit longer to get going than the other draftees. I don't think we should be expecting him to play heaps of AFL this year. I think we'll see him play a few games here and there, but I'm more focused on what he does in the VFL, because realistically, like, we don't even know what role this guy is going to play yet. Is he going to be up forward, midfield? We don't really know where or how this guy is going to play for the team. It's a bit of an unknown since, I guess, his draft year. He was a bit of an unknown as well. So Sullivan Robey, basement level expectations. I'm just excited to see him play footy and overcome that hotspot. Isaac Kako, I thought he performed really well in 2025. I took so much optimism from that 2025 season. The fact that he performed as the year was winding down. It's usually the opposite with draftees. They usually get worse as the year goes on, but Isaac Kako got better and better. His preseason was awesome. He obviously had that little hamstring setback, so he might miss round 1. If it's not round 1 he plays, it'll probably be round 2 or 3. He's going to play a lot of footy for the Bombers. I think the interesting thing here is that this guy is 19, so minimal expectations for a young player, but he's already leading the forward line. He's got more responsibility from a team structure point of view than a 19-year-old should have. He is leading the small forward line. He's probably the only forward in our team that's locked in, week out, if he is fit. So it's kind of a big year for Isaac Kako in a way. Not for us. I think, you can understand young players going through form slumps here and there if he doesn't perform, but for the team, like for Essendon to perform, Isaac Kako has to be a big part of that. And that is a lot of responsibility to put on the back of a 19-year-old. If anything, I mean, one, it shows just how talented this guy is to be in that spot so early in his career, but also two, it shows the forward stocks around him maybe aren't the deepest. So Isaac Kako, we just need to see this guy get on the park after that little hamstring setback and hopefully perform to the same standard he was this preseason, because he was looking absolutely electric. Jade Gresham, yeah, this is a divisive player on Essendon's list. Obviously, he has a lot of trust to win over with fans. If we're talking about winning trust over with the fans, Jade Gresham is case in point. Out of contract on big money since joining across from St Kilda. Starting to look like a failed trade. Of course, we can't judge too early. I'm trying to be as nice as possible to Jade Gresham, but unfortunately, realistically, this guy is under immense pressure to perform, and I think the fact that he is a free agent is, we're starting to look at, potential options with other clubs coming in to join for an experienced smaller forward. So really for Jade Gresham, it's just about bridging that worst and best together, because at his best, he's a good player. I think we know that. It's just that he's rarely at his best. One week he'll be getting 7 tackles, 20 touches and a few goals. The next week he's, on the verge of being dropped to the VFL. And that started to happen, by the way, that dropping to the VFL, when he might not even be in the frame to play round 1 against Hawthorn, which really shows you where he's at with all our young forward stocks. So yeah, unfortunately for Jade Gresham, this is starting to look like a make or break year. Will Setterfield. So the only reason he is on our list right now is because of Nic Martin's ACL. If Nic Martin didn't redo that knee, Will Setterfield wouldn't be allowed to join our list. We wouldn't have the spots available for him to join the list. So that tells you kind of the pressure levels for Setterfield. He's the 45th player on a list of 44. Eventually, we're going to have to cut down an extra spot on the list in the 2026 off-season. And, I mean, if you're looking at logic, probably one of the players in that firing line is Will Setterfield, especially because he hasn't been able to get on the park this off-season much at all, this pre-season, sorry. That foot is still causing him real issues, and that's been the case pretty much his whole career. Since he joined the club, he's played 27 games, so that is an average of 9 a season, which is not enough really to be on an AFL list. And to be honest, I had my doubts when he was added back to the list. You guys would know that quite a bit. I think there were other players we could have gone with, or we could have waited a bit longer. But, I mean, while the midfield's developing with him off to the side, he just needs to do as much as he can to find a way to get back in there. He's a good role player at his best. It's just we don't really see him play that role much because of his body. So for Will Setterfield, it's just about first getting his body right and then finding a way to break into a midfield that has been improving since he joined the club. That is the big thing. This guy is no longer a necessity in that midfield anymore. So big year for Setterfield in a contract year. Nik Cox is also in a contract year. I think with Nik Cox, first and foremost, it is about his physical health. You forget that these guys are humans sometimes, and then you see, Nik Cox and the story, what's happened there with his concussion setbacks, missing a whole season last year with concussion symptoms. So first and foremost, you're just hoping that this guy is physically healthy, for his own well-being as a human. And then if he can be physically healthy, it's about I mean, finding a way to break into this team again, like same as Setterfield. There are going to be a few players out of contract this year struggling to break into the senior team, and if they can't, it might well spell the end of their AFL careers, at least with this club, Essendon. So for Nik Cox, I mean, a criticism I've had in the past has been his inability to lock down a role. I think it's one thing being a unicorn who can play multiple different positions, and he can do that. You know, he's got that gut running ability, lovely on both sides of his body. He can play defence, wing or forward, but he can't really nail down any of those spots in the team. Like, you wouldn't say Nik Cox is a starting midfielder, starting defender, or starting forward. For this guy to play footy, you'd suspect there'd have to be a few injuries. So I guess for him, it's about making the most of his opportunity when it does come for him. I think he'll play a game or two this year at least. It's about making the most of that opportunity when he is able to play AFL footy. Jordan Ridley, I mean, yeah, another one with injury troubles. I mean, really for him, it's just about getting on the park, and it's as simple as that, because we know this guy is one of our best players when he is available, when fit, but, you know, he just hasn't been fit or available. He's been missing so much footy in the last few years, and it's getting to worrying levels. Like, it's gotten to a stage where I'm starting to think, and, you know, I used to say Ridley was our second most important player after Merrett. I wouldn't even know if he's in the top 5 anymore, because there's just no availability there, which is just a horrible thing to say about such a good player. You know, he started the year with that hamstring setback, didn't do any main training. As soon as he starts doing main training, he gets that calf setback and he's out for the start of the year. You just really got to hope that he puts that calf behind him when he's back and doesn't suffer another setback, because, you know, 3 soft tissue injuries in the space of, 10, 9, 12 months, whatever it is, it would be just a horrible occurrence for someone who is actually looking to leave the club and start fresh somewhere else, Brisbane in particular. So, yeah, you just really hope this guy puts this behind him somehow. I don't know how. It's kind of hope more than anything with Jordan Ridley, because when he is playing footy, he is just such an amazing footballer. I really love this guy on the list. I think he's such a good footballer, but the fact that he's not being able to play football, that is what's incredibly frustrating. And now those questions are starting to seep through whether or not he's going to be able to be a long-term footballer for the club, or whether we should be looking to offload him and see if he can spark his career somewhere else. Obviously, Matt Innes is going to play a big part in that, but big year for Jordan Ridley. Most of it's going to be a big year in terms of what he does off the field and on the track. Dyson Sharp, he's apparently another one of these junior players. I'm not so sure. I'm still thinking 30 years old, but apparently he is 18. We have to trust the club in that. And if that is the case, if he is indeed 18 years old, then it's really just about developing and learning on the run. You know, yes, his draft narrative was about how he was ready to go round 1 in the AFL. He was the most ready-made player in that draft, but that doesn't mean he has to play every game or should play every game. I think it would be good to give him a little bit of adversity and something to overcome by dropping him into the VFL at some stage to work his way back into the team. So, yeah, really for Dyson Sharp, it's about, I guess, trying to improve the things that he can improve. He's already done that with his running ability. We'll see if he can do that with his foot skills a bit as well, but he's an 18-year-old apparently, so really no expectations at all. Archie Perkins, another player under a lot of pressure heading into 2026. His last couple of years have been disappointing, I guess. It has been disappointing to see Archie Perkins play footy after, you know, the lofty standards he set. I think it was round 1 2024 or 2023 against Hawthorn, where he absolutely tore them to shreds, got 3 Brownlow votes, I think, potentially as well. And then, I guess, you know, I think there were articles about Archie Perkins being the next big thing in footy. Since then, he's been dropped in, you know, in and out of the VFL and AFL. It's been really hard for him to get going. Injuries have also mounted in a little bit as well lately, so nothing's going right for Archie Perkins at the moment, unfortunately. And then you talk about the team and the setup and the structure. What role is Archie Perkins going to play in 2026? You know, is it going to be midfield? Is it going to be in a forward line? Is he even able to fit in that forward line full time? It's a tough one. You know, it's really hard to know where Archie Perkins is at, and that's, I guess, why 2026 is going to be a really interesting year to observe for Archie Perkins and see what he can do, because now that he is out of contract, we're going to find out a lot about his footy, but also his mentality and his mettle, and whether or not he can use this opportunity, you know, the Jake Stringer contract year discussions, or whether he can use this contract year to spark something in his game and become the player that we thought he could be. Because if not, he is another one probably staring down the barrel of a potential delisting, and that might sound harsh, but it's definitely true. Vigo Visentini, yeah, I think this is just a developmental season, to be honest. Like, he's contracted for next year, so there's no need for him to impress in the AFL or VFL, to be honest. I think he still should try to. That should be his own personal goal, but there's no need for it. And I think with what last year showed us with Vigo Visentini is that he probably isn't quite ready to play AFL footy yet anyway. Like, he got, he battled hard against better ruckman, but he did get towelled up a little bit, and I think age age and inexperience was a reason for that. So now it's just about building that age and experience on the training track in the VFL and under Todd Goldstein as the new ruck coach. So yeah, it's another year of development. He's very young for a ruckman still, by the way. Ruckmen don't develop until much later in their career, usually. Vigo Visentini is still very green, very fresh in his AFL journey. So I've got no expectations for him in 2026. I think it's going to be Lachlan Blakiston and Nick Bryan doing pretty much all of the rucking. Honestly, I'd be surprised if Visentini plays too much footy. I think injuries would probably have to occur for that to be the case. I don't think he's going to be in the AFL team much. I think it's going to be another VFL season. Lewis Hayes, unfortunately, he's going to miss half the year with that ACL. He probably won't return until after the bye, and even when he does return, you'd expect it to be through the VFL rather than straight back into the AFL. He only played one half of AFL footy, I guess, in his career with that ACL, unfortunately, which was just a horrible injury, because you could really see a world where this guy was one of the big talking points about last year. Like, he looked ready to play AFL footy. That knee was just horrible timing. He would have got to go, a really good run at it as well with the players injured around him. So it was a really frustrating one last year for Lewis Hayes, and I think it might have honestly set him back a little bit in terms of his ability to play AFL now rather than later, because now he'll have to come back in through the VFL, improve match conditioning, and then hope that players in the AFL are either unavailable or not playing too well. And unfortunately, when that's the case, you're less likely to play lots of footy than you would be if you had built that period of games that you got in 2025 if you didn't do that ACL. So frustrating injury, really just for Lewis Hayes, who is in a contract year as well. It's about avoiding regression, because regression is where you can start to have doubt creep in with the coach and the list management committee and everything like that. But I guess for Lewis Hayes, it's about just playing the way he did in the VFL his whole career, really. Like, if he comes out and is able to play football in the VFL and play to the standard that he's set, he's probably going to get a contract extension, because our key defensive stocks aren't deep anyway. We need numbers back there, and Lewis Hayes is one of the more promising key defenders that we have on our list. So going to return in the second half of the year. Probably won't play too much AFL footy, you'd expect. Kayle Gerreyn is another one I'm not expecting to see play too much AFL footy, and that is, this begs the question, what does Kayle Gerreyn need to do in 2026 to achieve a new contract? Because he is another one out of contract and probably under a bit of pressure. But let's say Kayle Gerreyn has the same season he did in 2025 in the VFL. Is that enough for him to earn a new contract at the club, or are we going to go a different direction? And I think the main one for me with Kayle Gerreyn is him improving his running ability. He clearly hasn't been able to go contest to contest much in his short time at the Bombers. His fitness is probably the main area of concern. I think he's got a really good foundation to be a good player with that size and that skill and that mobility, I guess. But it's more that fitness and running out games and going contest to contest and being able to impact in the air as much as you can. And I don't think he's able to do that yet. So that's the main one for me. Seeing him able to do that in the VFL, that would probably give myself and the club optimism to, keep him on the list for another year at least. But if he can't do that, if it's another 2025 repeat where he's just, falling behind a bit late in games, that'll start to spark some questions. Because if you had 2 preseasons on an AFL list, your fitness base should be at a level where you're, I guess, ready to play AFL footy. And if he's not by the end of the year, that's probably where you're starting to think about his spot on the list. Peter Wright, this guy's always been a reliable goal kicker for the Bombers. He's kicked 148 goals in 86 games since joining from the Gold Coast Suns. He's twice being our leading goal kicker, won the Crichton Medal in 2022 as well. I think this year his role is probably going to change a bit, especially early in the season. I'm looking at Wright and thinking more and more about his, what he does in the ruck now, because those rules have changed to signify the importance of that position. And while we've only got one ruck out on the field in Blakiston, it's going to mean that Peter Wright has a lot of work to do backing him up in the early rounds in the ruck. And then, of course, after that, whatever combo we use after Bryan returns. Peter Wright's going to be rucking larger portions of games in 2026 than he would have before. He's not going to be in the forward line as much as he has been under Scott. In 2022, he averaged 3 hitouts a game. That was his Crichton season in 2022. Last year, it was over 10 hitouts a game, and that was without the ruck rules being changed. With Blakiston also maybe being used behind the ball when in open play, it's probably going to bring Wright in for stoppages, contests too at times around the ground. So Peter Wright, he's got to be accountable in 2 different roles, which is always challenging. He's got to be a marking threat up forward. We can't afford to see him not make a contest when the ball is inside 50, and that's been a criticism at times. He's our most targeted forward and needs to show why that is the case, but also in the ruck, he needs to be accountable there too. So I think there's sneaky amounts of pressure on Peter Wright in 2026 because I guess you have someone who needs to perform in two different roles for the structure of the team. This is actually a really important player for the structure of the team in many ways because he's playing two different positions, important positions, and his roles in those positions are very important. And I think with Archer May coming along and the fans enjoying what they're seeing from Archer May, there's going to be discussion on that whole Archer May, Peter Wright conversation and whether or not there is room for overtaking there. I personally don't see that quite yet. I think Peter Wright is quite far ahead in terms of his quality as a player right now, but there will eventually come a time where those discussions are said to be are going to be had. Archie Roberts, he was second in the Crichton medal last year at the age of 19. He is 20 years old, now being moved into the midfield a bit more as well. He's averaging 24 touches in his first 27 AFL games of footy. That is really, really good stuff, and it shows why he's being moved into the midfield. And I think, by the way, that is a move that's going to happen. Like, it might not happen at length this year. He might play behind the ball a bit more, but eventually this guy is going to be a midfielder because, I mean, he's got the running capabilities to run both ways. He has got the dynamism and composure in the contest. The one thing he needs to work on is his clangers. Like, this guy averaged 24 touches a game in his career. Almost 1/6 of those touches are clangers, and he's prone to a turnover. He's prone to a missed kick. It's a big part of his game at the moment, and I guess age plays a part in that. He is 20 years old. He's played 27 AFL games. As time goes on, he will improve with his decision making and foot skills, you would hope. But I guess we just hope we see signs of that early in 2026. This guy is so unbelievably tough and determined. Like, for a kid, even just interviewing him face to face, you can see that this guy has determination in his eyes and just wants to be the best at everything he can be. So yeah, big year for Archie Roberts, not in a bad way, no pressure on him at all. Really, we love this guy on the list, and he is growing and developing so well each year for someone that was taken with pick 50 or 60, whatever it was in the draft. So I just want to see this guy play more midfield footy. I think he's going to be really great in the midfield. Sam Durham, I mean, yeah, the conversation here really, I think, is about having that breakout year because, look, we know Sam Durham's tough and accountable and just, an absolute ball at the contest and a midfield weapon, but he isn't really one of the competition's best midfielders yet, despite having the tools and the makings to be one. He's got that aerial ability that makes him a real weapon around the ground and open play, but also inside 50 as well. He's got the ball winning ability that a midfielder has. He's got the damage that a midfielder can have on both sides of his body. For Sam Durham, it's just about putting that together. And unfortunately, for external reasons, or not external, but, injury and whatnot, and I guess availability with the team, he hasn't been able to do that yet. 2026 is a great opportunity for Sam Durham to take that next step forward and be not just one of the best midfielders for the Bombers, but in the competition. I think this guy could be a potential Crichton medal contender. After Zach Merrett, he was the one I was about to predict having in my video as the Crichton winner. I'd love to see a full season, because if we get one out of Sam Durham, if we get games, back to back to back with teammates around him, it's going to spell good things. And I think we should be I think the competition should be really keeping an eye on Sam Durham this year, because I think he is genuinely one of our best players. He just hasn't been able to show it yet. Harry Jones, yeah, that ankle injury was just an absolutely brutal one. It took a lot longer to recover than we would have liked, and I just guess the visuals of it, matched with the recovery time, it would have been really hard on Harry Jones as a young player to be recovering from that off the side for so long, and he's only just got back playing some VFL minutes recently. So for Harry Jones, it's just about getting more comfortable in his body, being able to get to a stage where he can trust in that ankle to play at the highest level of AFL footy. The good news for Jones is that he does have time on his side. He's not out of contract this year. He is out of contract next year, and I don't think the club would pull the trigger on him early, given what he's suffered in the last 12 months, especially because I thought he showed some really good signs in 2024 as that wing role player. So once he does return from that injury, it's about finding a role, whether that's on the wing or up forward. I think we need more role players on the team, and yes, it's good to have a utility somewhere that can play multiple roles. Jones can do that. But what we need, first and foremost, is a player that knows where they're going to be playing week in, week out at their very best. And if he needs to be moved somewhere else, he can be. So for Harry Jones, it's just about impressing in the VFL, really, and overcoming that nasty, nasty ankle injury. The good news is he has got time on his side. Nick Bryan, copy and paste, really. He's recovering from a horrific ACL injury that he suffered early last year. It might halt his development a little bit, you'd expect with an injury like that. He might not be at his best straight away, and he might not be showing the signs that he saw before the ACL straight away either. But the good news is he has time on his side. He's also out of contract next year, which means he has got time to recover with both body and mind and trust his body again, because after injuries like that, players can lose trust in their own bodies and think twice about heading into contests. So for Nick Bryan, it's first and foremost about building that trust in his own body back and then finding a way back into that AFL team, whether it is alongside Lachie Blakiston in a dual ruck setup or on his own and pushing Lachie Blakiston out of the team. I think it's fun being able to see Nick Bryan play this, second fiddle again without the responsibility of the main role and try and, work in ahead of someone on a similar level. With Sam Draper on the team, it was often hard for him to find a spot in the side, but with Lachie Blakiston, you'd expect that they're going to be battling out pretty hard for that main ruck role. So that's going to be really interesting to see, but of course we have to wait till he overcomes that knee injury. It should probably be in the early rounds of the season. You'd be thinking rounds 5 or 6. Jaxon Prior, our lovely wingman. You guys would know how I feel about the wing experiment. I don't really like Prior on a wing. I like him on the list as depth as a role player in defence. I mean, the fact that he can play wing is handy if we need it, but in an ideal world, he is not our starting wingman. But I also think that's also just kind of Jaxon Prior as a player, and that's why I liked the pickup so much. And I said that when we picked him up, that this guy is such a handy depth player who can play multiple roles around the ground if we need. And the main thing with Jaxon Prior is just about staying fit and available and durable. And that's what he's been done. He's doing so much throughout his career. He's rarely injured. He's always out there playing at some level, whether AFL or VFL, usually AFL for the Bombers because we have injuries around him. But that's the whole point of him being on this list, is that he is the next in player. He raises his hand to play if someone is missing around him. That's going to be the case this year. I don't see this guy as a best 23 player. I don't even know if the club sees him as a best 23 player. I think he's the next in player who is just such handy depth to be able to come in, play a role and play a tough role too. This guy just does try hard. So Jaxon Prior, it's another season of depth. Again, out of contract though, so he'll need to do something a little bit more to earn that contract back. But a good way to do that is showing that he is still that handy depth, that next in player throughout the course of the season. Archie May, another out of contract player, but I'm going to say he's on the safer side given what he's shown in his short time. The fact that he's a mid-season draftee, so he's only played a handful of games and had the one pre-season at the club. He's also been really impressive this pre-season as well and gotten a lot of praise internally from the players on the list, with the way he's performing. And I guess you see that, by the way, with the fact that he's being used in the practice games ahead of senior players, more senior than him. So really for Archie May, I don't even think it's about playing AFL footy. It's just about really being an option to play AFL footy, if you get me. Like, I think, injuries will be a determining factor whether he plays or not, whether guys around him fall down like we saw in 2025. But it's just about being that option at such a young age. Like, he doesn't have to be playing AFL footy to earn a contract. He needs to be an option, needs to be an emergency, something like that. As long as the coaches are thinking about using him in the AFL team, week in, week out, or in periods of the season, that's probably enough for him to get that extension, because he is a higher upside player, and there is more development to unlock there with more pre-seasons you'd expect. Mason Redman, he is the vice-captain without the official title you'd expect. Look, it's an interesting one, because he's lowered his colours a bit since that All-Australian squad year in 2023. 2024 and 2025 were genuinely disappointing for the most part. I thought he found form in the back end of last year, which gave me a bit of optimism that this guy is a leader at the club. And then his actions in the off-season as well, the way he defended the club in the Merrett situation, I really admired. I know that he's apologised for it, but I really liked seeing that. And that's that toughness that you've come to expect with Mason Redman at his best. So really, now that he's in an official leadership capacity, I guess unofficial with the vice-captaincy, but you'd expect he is the vice-captain. It's about, continuing with that toughness, that determination, and really just being the best leader that you can be while playing the best footy that you can be. And that might sound really basic to say, just, go out there and play good footy, Mason Redman, but that's it. That's what we need to see. We haven't really been able to see this guy play with freedom and flair, that natural red dog style in quite a bit of time. So it's about seeing that while also providing leadership for those younger boys in the back line alongside his captain, Andy McGrath. I think that's a really strong back line, by the way, in terms of leadership with McGrath and Redman there, because they're both very different styles as well. You've got the real tough nut of Mason Redman and the more soft and caring style of McGrath. McGrath. I like that blend. I like Redmond, but we just need to see him return to that 2023, not even form, but I guess aggression. It's not even about playing the footy he did in 2023. It's about being the aggressive, defender, playmaker that he can be. Xavier Duursma, I think it really depends on where he's playing, like whether it is the forward line or the midfield or the wing, sorry. I'm personally, I'm on the train of Xavier Duursma as a winger, and he should stay there because of his gut running ability both ways. I get the thought process being that easier for him to work back than the wingman being the last man back, and it kind of helps the defensive system more having gut runners further up the field that can work their way back and transition. But I just think he's better suited to a wing, and we've seen him play forward at Port Adelaide. It didn't work. He was being dropped to the sandfall. This guy left Port Adelaide to join Essendon for midfield minutes eventually to get out of the forward line. Now he's being put back into the forward line. So whether that sparks anything in his own mind, I guess time will tell. Honestly, it's a confusing one. I really like Duursma on a wing. I think he should stay there. I'm not quite sold on the experiment yet. So it's hard to preview a player when you don't know exactly where the position is. But for Duursma, I'm just hoping it's wing footy, because when he's playing wing footy, it's genuinely good. Aside from the brain fade here or there, he's genuinely a really solid wingman that can impact defensively. And that's the main thing, impacting defensively. And I'm worried about his ability to do so when he's so much higher up the field. So time will tell with Xavier Duursma. Max Contagianis, younger player, copy and paste. Expectations are low, especially with a player taken in the second round of the draft as well. So this isn't one of the first round draftees. He was taken later on. So yeah, you're not even expecting him to play footy, to be honest. That's the case with draftees in general. They don't have to play footy, but in the case of someone taken outside the first round, it's just about development. The good news is this guy's already developed so much since coming on the list, and he's at a stage now where he's genuinely ready to play footy. Like, we might see this guy debut, if not round one, in the early rounds of the season, and that is, if you go back to his draft year, I liked him a lot in his draft year. You guys would know he's my boy. I didn't think he'd be playing footy, much at all if in 2026. So that's the good news, the fact that he's already developing and improving as a player since joining the list. That means that this preview is kind of null and void, because he's already rose to levels that I didn't expect him to rise to before the season would have started. So great news that he's doing so well in his early career. We just hope that he keeps developing and doesn't get complacent. That's the big thing. If I was in his shoes, I'd definitely be getting complacent. I've definitely got that mindset. But this guy, it's about, finding more reasons to improve your game and finding more faults in your game to overcome and improve. Nate Caddy. So this is a really good one to talk about after Contagianis, because, you talk about draftees needing to show glimpses in their early seasons, of what they can be in the future. Nate Caddy has well and truly done that. He hasn't put it all together yet. He is still a very young and raw player in a system that doesn't quite work around him, but he's shown glimpses of what he can be in the future. Now it's getting to the stage in his early 20s where he's going to have to start showing more consistency with those glimpses, and even, I guess not showing glimpses at all, but signs of being a real AFL footballer. And I think we saw a fair bit of that last year before the injury. In 2026, with the preseason under the belt, that groin looking a lot better, the osteitis pubis kind of at the back of his mind now, you'd hope. This is where we have to start seeing a few games back to back. Not a whole season, not 50 goals or anything like that. He's still very young, but I'm really keen to see Nate Caddy impress over the span of, a number of games. Even if he's inconsistent in patches after that's kind of natural with his position at such a young age. As long as we get to see back-to-back games of, productive football for the team, not eye-catching star-level football, but productive football in his role, that is what I want to see. Because if we see that paired with the glimpses, that is a sign that this guy could be just a freak of a footballer. And I really do think he could be. Like, I've got my expectations for Nate Caddy are sky high in terms of what he can be as a player in the future. I think he could honestly be the best player in our team, and that might be too much expectation to pin on such a young player. But you look at what he can do and that athleticism and that talent, there's so much there to work with, and it's about working with that and getting the most out of it. Sounds simple to say for such a young player, but that's just the truth. I think one thing, by the way, that he could improve on is his positioning and aggression in marking contests. You love aggression in a marking contest, but he often overruns the footy, finds himself underneath it with his defender kind of reading the ball better than him. He's a good reader of the ball, Nate Caddy, but he's an aggressive reader of the ball, and it often plays into the advantage of his direct opponent. So that's something that I'd like to see him work on. Zach Reid, I'm just crossing fingers, touching wood, praying that this guy stays out on the park, because there's not even much he has to change in his game. Like, we saw him last year. He could be an incredible player. He looked so good. He was our best player for about a month or two there, Zach Reid, and that is crazy because before the season, he'd played 10 games. He's played 19 AFL games since being drafted in 2020. His injuries have been just unbelievably, out of nowhere at times, but also those muscles. It's just setback after setback. He hasn't had a full season or even a season with 2 blocks of games. Like last year, if he played that first block and then ended the year as well after recovering, that honestly could have been beneficial in a way because he would have got multiple blocks of footy, but he hasn't had multiple blocks of footy. If he gets 1 block, we better hope it's a whole year this year because we just need to see this guy play as much footy as possible in this team to give us hope that he is the right man going forward. I think he could be the right man going forward. It's just about whether his body thinks he's the right man going forward. So the only thing really to say with Zach Reid is to just please stay fit. Ben McKay, Zach Reid's partner, he's played 2 seasons at the Bombers. His first season, he was one of the best intercepting defenders in the competition. He averaged the 3rd most intercepts in 2024, over 8 a game, but he had a one-on-one loss rate of 33%, and that was the big criticism, the fact that he was intercepting the footy, but not being accountable for his direct opponent. Last year, it was the complete opposite. So yes, he had that injury, but when he was on the park, he was averaging 5 intercepts a game, the 52nd most, so well down on his numbers in 2024. But his one-on-one loss rate was 17%, and he was really allowing Zach Reid to flourish in his role. So, yes, those are stats. They don't tell the full story, but it does paint a picture. This guy had completely opposite 2024 and 2025 seasons. I mean, now it's about knowing what he's going to be in 2025-6 with Zach Reid around him, whether he is just that defensively accountable defender. And if that is the case, is he the right man for the job? I think this guy is an incredible interceptor down the line. Hasn't been able to do that much since Zach Reid came back. I don't think it's a huge issue because Zach Reid flourished on his own. But is Ben McKay going to be able to flourish with Zach Reid flourishing, if you get me? That's the thing I'm worried about, whether Reid and McKay are the right duo together. And I guess time will tell. They haven't played heaps of footy together over the years, so this will be a really telling season whether or not they can both flourish and play good footy at the same time. Because last year it felt like we were praising, Zach Reid for his intercepting, while Ben McKay was kind of the forgotten man, just being accountable on defenders. This year, I hope we're able to praise both of them at the same time. Hussien El Achkar, copy and paste, first-year player, taken so late in the draft, fitness being a bit of a concern and building that fitness base, so there's no expectation for him to play footy in 2026. In saying that, he's going to play footy in 2026. This guy, much like Kondagianis, has really impressed this preseason and has gotten to a stage where he's already met or exceeded expectations that I had when he was drafted, and that is excellent news. So again, like with Kondagianis, it's just about, finding that balance of playing the footy that you can play at a level higher than what you thought you'd be able to play when drafted, but also improving on what you can improve on, because that, again, is the thing that is, that complacency. Once you're at a stage higher than what you thought you could be, you can still go higher, and we just need Hussien to understand that as well. I'm really keen to see how this guy goes alongside Isaac Kako. That's going to be the dynamic partnership there, whether these two can play really good footy alongside each other. But the fact that we're at a stage where we're talking about that so early in the year is much, much better than what I thought we'd be talking about, when he was drafted. I think this is already looking like a really shrewd pickup. Yes, an NGA pickup, but still shrewd nevertheless. Matt Guelphy. Now, this is a massive year. He is out of contract. He's a free agent. He's West Australian as well, so take that into account. He is also kind of on the outer a little bit. So he didn't play in that last practice game against St Kilda. Hussien El Achkar is already probably perceived to be ahead of him in the pecking order, which is not at all what you want to be if you're Matt Guelphy, who's been such a good role player through the years, but I guess I don't know. It's just gotten to a stage where our forward line needs redirection. It needs a bit of shifting and changing. Guelphy's out of contract. He's one of the names in that forward line, not quite hitting his straps at the moment. Yeah, this is definitely one to watch. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about him as either a trade option or a delisting option at some stage in the year. I'm almost certain he's going to be in and out of the team, both through the VFL and the AFL. I think there's going to be a revolving door in that forward line, as I've said a lot this preseason. So for Guelphy, it's about finding that negating role and really making the most of that, because that is what sets him apart from all the other forwards. There's no other small forward that can do what Matt Guelphy does on the opposition defenders. He's shut down Sicily, Whitfield, some really good players in the competition. He needs to find a way to do that again in 2026, because if he's only being used in the forward line as a goal-scoring option, that is not the way he's going to stay on the list, and I think there are better options there to kick goals anyway. So for Guelphy, it's about that negating role and making the most out of it. Angus Clarke, yeah, he's going to miss most of the year with that syndesmosis. They are usually 3 to 4, 5-month injuries, those syndesmosis injuries, especially with a younger player, Clarke. There's probably going to be less risk attached. We've already seen what he can do at such a young age, at such a skinny body. He's signed that contract extension as well. So the fact he's injured is really unfortunate for, his own self, wanting to play footy, especially because he spoke to me in an interview about homesickness. And you often find players that are homesick, when they're playing footy, it's easier to just hide that and overcome it a little bit. But when you're not playing footy, when you're injured off to the side, this guy's going to be missing home more than ever. So really, it's just about staying as positive as he can be off to the side on the track and recovering from that syndesmosis as well as he can. This guy's really good with his rehab. He recovered really well from that collarbone injury last year and played footy earlier than expected. So it's about doing the same thing again here for Angus Clarke, finding games in the back end of the year and staying as positive as he can. Nic Martin is out of the year with that ACL injury, so we can't talk about his footy at all, really. It's just about recovering for 2027 and being a good leadership option on the bench. This guy's going to be on the sidelines, coaching a little bit on game day with the headset on. You see players often do that off to the side. He's going to be one of those players now that he's out for the year. So I guess it's just about building his communication style and his leadership through that role. That could be helpful in 2027, but yeah, it's just a year of rehab, unfortunately. Rhys Unwin, he's starting the year with a bit of a calf setback, so that's not a good sign, especially in an out-of-contract season. But I think the good thing about Unwin is that, I was talking about what sets Guelphy apart from other players earlier. Rhys Unwin has that connection piece that I don't think other forward midfielders have on the team. Like, if anything, he's probably battling more with spots on the list with someone like Jade Gresham, who's got that connection piece as well. I don't think we should be looking out for Unwin with goals scored or anything like that. This guy can use his lateral movement to provide separation from the defender, can use the ball nicely in those little short stabby kicks going inside 50. I think this guy will play footy in the AFL at some stage when he comes back from that calf. As I said, there'll be a revolving door of small forwards, both on game day and also on the list. I think spots will dwindle on the list. We've got quite a few small forwards and the zone isn't really working. So that could spell one or two things. It could mean Rhys Unwin gets more responsibility with good performances, or maybe we decide we're going to go a different way. So only time will tell there. How he recovers from that calf will be a big talking point in that, and also how he performs in the VFL will be a big, the decider in that as well. Whether he plays midfield in the VFL like he did last year, because I actually think that gave him a lot of confidence to join the AFL forward line as well. Cillian Bourke, I mean, if expectations are low for the draftees, they are absolutely nowhere for Cillian Bourke, who is learning a new sport. Like, this guy has come over from Ireland. He's not even playing AFL for the in the league for the first time, but for the sport in the first time. So he's learning the skills, the fundamentals. The hamstring injury is a bit of a setback, which doesn't help as much. But for Cillian Bourke, it is just about showing as much as he can with his teaching and his education. Like if he is learning on the run faster than expected, that is what's going to get him a contract. He could still be the worst player on our list come the end of the year, but still get a contract because of just how quickly he's learned. Like that's what sets him apart from other players in terms of expectations. He doesn't have to be improving in the pecking order, and I don't think he will be. Like, I don't think it'll get to a stage where he's fighting to play AFL footy. As long as he's learning quicker than we would expect players to learn, that is all he needs to do. Zak Johnson. So, I mean, already he's kind of raised the bar for me. Like, last year he was only a week off being eligible for this year's draft, by the way, the 2025 draft. So the fact that he's played AFL minutes at such a young age, he's not much younger than the current draftees. He didn't have a preseason last year either. So the fact that he's got that experience is massive for him and his development, because now he's looking an even better player because of it. I think he's drastically improved his defensive accountability from what I've seen, and that was probably the major fault last year in his footy and why he didn't get many games in the back end of that season. But now it's looking like he's going to play round one. He's more defensively accountable. He's such a good playmaker with the footy. He's probably the kind of the player that we need in the back half, using the footy there, getting 20 to 25 touches a game, because when he does get the footy, he does really good things with it. So I'm expecting this guy to play a fair bit of footy in 2026. I'm expecting him to get a contract extension. I'd be really, really surprised if he doesn't. I think he's going to be on our list for a fairly long time. Saad El-Hawli. This is a really interesting one, because this guy, you could see a way that this guy could fit in the team with his speed and direct aggression from back half. Like, that is kind of what the modern game is built around. And the fact that he isn't in the best team, despite possessing those qualities more so than anyone else on our list maybe suggests that there's some things that he's really lacking. Maybe his skills with the footy and his damage with footy in hand. Maybe, his footy fundamentals. It's tough to say really, but the fact is, he's got the weapons to be a modern day AFL footballer, but he hasn't quite put it together yet. And in a contract year, it's going to be a really interesting one, because if anyone's got an opportunity to break into the senior team and kind of play the game the way it should be played, it is Saad El-Hawli with his line-breaking speed. So I'm expecting to see him play a bit of footy this year, to be honest, just for that reason. Like, I don't think we've got speed on the list. We need speed on the list, and we've got Saad, who is one of the quickest players, in our team, off to the side. I think he'll play a bit of footy for that reason, but I'm not quite sure where I sit with Saad El-Hawli, and I don't think anyone really is. He's one of the harder players to get a read on heading into this season. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he breaks into this best 23. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he's left on the outer and facing a potential delisting. Here's another one who is out of contract. Jayden Nguyen, this guy is primarily a defender. He is a lockdown defender, locking down on the better small forwards, and he did that in his first few games last year, which was awesome. As I said a few times, the one thing he needs to improve is winning the football and being, accountable for, yes, his opponent, but also the football when it's around him. I think at times he was a bit too defense heavy last year, and to be fair, a first year player not really supposed to be playing in his first year, category B rookie, there were nerves 100%, but the good news is he's got that taste of footy, had some really positive games and impact on games, and is now well and truly in line to play round one as well. And the fact that he could be playing round one is a massive indication of what the club sees in him as a player. Like, I think this guy's as tough as anyone on the list. It's funny watching him at training, because he goes in, the coaches are kind of wincing and creasing seeing him go into contests, because he could, hurt himself or anyone at any moment with his disregard for his own body. And that's the type of player we're going to get in 2026 with Jayden Nguyen. I think he's honestly not locked in this best 23 long term, but for round one, I think he's going to be playing there, and that is a huge indication that this guy could be playing back-to-back games in 2026, not just early, but throughout the season as well. And that would be a massive, massive sign of faith for such a young player, category B rookie as well, on the rookie list. I'd be expecting a contract extension. Archer Day-Wicks, another out-of-contract player in his second year at the club, another rookie, by the way, alongside Jayden Nguyen. This guy's more so on the outer, and I think talking about Rhys Unwin, actually, I kind of forgot about Archer Day-Wicks, who's also a connection piece in a different way. Rhys Unwin's that agility, fleet of foot player. Archer Day-Wicks is a bit more solid and tough, and I guess it really depends on what you want out of the two. And, there'll be questions, can you have both these players on the list with other players staying on as well? It kind of depends what happens around them. But Archer Day-Wicks is another who'll be hoping to play AFL footy this year, and if he doesn't, then the questions will come. If he's not playing AFL footy in 2026 and he did in 2025, the question will be, why is that the case? Has he gone backwards? Has he regressed? And regression in a contract year is never what you want. So I guess for Archer Day-Wicks, a good indication of whether he is in line for a new extension would be if he plays AFL footy, because it would show that he's not regressing, but either, staying where he was, treading water, or going forward and taking steps forward. And to be honest, his preseason, it looks like he has taken a few steps forward with his footy, and looks a bit more, there's a bit more intent in his footy as well. So we'll see him start in the VFL. He's not going to play against Hawthorn, probably won't play in the early rounds of the season, but he didn't play in the early rounds of the season last year and still got games before the injury crisis. So it shows that there is a spot for him in that team outside of injury. Like the fact that he played against Sydney before the injuries really started mounting is an indication that this guy is viewed as a genuine AFL player sooner rather than expected. Like, this guy got games before Nguyen, before Unwin, before Zak Johnson, before Angus Clarke as well, who had that injury. So it shows you that the coaches see something that maybe fans don't quite see as much. Tom Edwards. Now, this is a tough one because, obviously he had that ACL injury last year, got that contract extension, looked really good on debut, kicked 3 goals against the Crows, but that was in a team without Kyle Langford. Then, Nate Caddy was a year younger as well. Then you take into account the fact that we've also added Liam McMahon and Archer May through the mid-season draft. So some of these out-of-contract key forwards are going to be left on the outer and delisted at the end of the year. That is just, it goes without saying. And Tom Edwards, being out of contract, is one of those players in the firing line a little bit. Now, he has returned to training since that ACL and will be playing VFL to start the year when he does return. It's just about how he can really fit into this team, and that's the question. I I don't know how he fits into this team without injury. And if that's the case, is he left on the outside? Is he delisted? Those are the questions you've got to ask yourself with these out-of-contract players. So big year for Tom Edwards. If last year was your tester in the AFL, this is really the test of the mettle and how you can squeeze into a team that you don't quite belong in yet at this stage. Lachie Blakiston. Now, we've been talking about a few out-of-contract players here. This guy was out of contract to start the season, but he has been rewarded with a really strong preseason and back end of 2025 with a new 2-year deal. So he now has contractual security, which other players don't have. That will give him a bit more freedom to perform, you'd expect. So really what started the year as maybe a bit of a pressure season, because there's always pressure when you're out of contract, it will now be a relatively carefree season from a career viewpoint. So for Blakiston, it's just about being able to play in his natural position in the ruck for starters. Like last year, he was only used as a defender for the first time in his career, really. This year, he's had the luxury of training in his position in a pre-season, which he didn't have last year. He's going to start the year as the main ruck in the absence of Nic Bryan. Ruck rules are changing to suit the type of ruck that Blakiston is, the athletic type. And with free reign as the main ruck for the first few weeks of the season, it is now a great opportunity for him to make his mark on this team. He's going to need to sharpen up his footy skills, reduce the clangers that have been a part of his game a bit, but there's a reason why he's been signed up so quickly. He's genuinely viewed as our ruck right now. Whether that'll be the case when Bryan returns or not is the big question, and that's when we can really start honing in on the Blakiston-Bryan discussion, because for now it is just Blakiston on his own. But yeah, the fact he's been signed up so quickly is a great indication that he's on this list, not only long-term, but to actually play footy. Liam McMahon, another out-of-contract player. He's one that really divides this particular community a bit as well. I often find I get a bit of feedback when I criticize Liam McMahon, so I'll be as nice as I can. But to be honest, I think if it's tough for Tom Edwards to break his way into the team, it'll be even tougher for Liam McMahon. I think, I know he kicked some goals last year and was a reliable goal scorer for us in the games that he played, but I just don't think that the team likes the style of player that he is in an AFL system, enough to, I guess, impact around the ground. Like, you need 18 players on the field buying in defensively and being able to be a defensive and attacking threat. And I think Liam McMahon is only really a threat inside 50. And the inside 50, yes, it's good to kick goals, but we've got other goal scorers that can do that as well. But also, on top of that, do more outside of the game, inside the arc. So for Liam McMahon, it is really just improving what he can do outside of the 50, whether he can be that link in the chain, whether he can provide defensive accountability, because we haven't seen that yet. To be honest, I think he's one of the more under pressure players in terms of a potential delisting. He's out of contract, so there's always that pressure. He probably does need to play AFL footy, really, because you've got, Tom Edwards, Archer May, these forwards around him. Out of those guys, I'd say Liam McMahon is probably the one that I'm the least sure of in terms of what he can be as an AFL footballer. But guys, that is that. A longer video today. We have gone through the entire list and previewed every player's 2026 season. Thank you for watching if you stuck around. Make sure you go subscribe to my, follow my Instagram account, everything_Essendon.ig. Guys, thank you so much for watching all these videos, not just this one, but all these videos. Thank you for the support. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We've just hit 7,000 recently, going for 8,000. And as always, go Bombers.